Hello, I'm John Kleiss of Tissel Media, and I am now here with Tennessee State Treasurer David Lillard. Now, interesting fact about Mr. Lillard here, not only is he the State Treasurer, he is also a history buff, and he has so kindly offered to show us around his office and take us on a trip through time. You ready?
Yes.
All right, let's get started.
All right. This is Edward B. Craig, who was Treasurer of Tennessee from 1894 to 1902. This office, this suite of offices, by the way, the Capitol was completed in 1859 after about 14 years of construction, and this suite of offices has been the Treasurer's office since that time, since 1859, right? And so it has a lot of history that's happened here. This gentleman on the wall right here is Admiral Samuel P. Carter.
Lovely beard.
From Carter County, Tennessee, in East Tennessee. He's a Tennessean, of course, and he's the only American military officer to have the distinction of serving as a general officer in both the Army and the Navy.
Obviously, Abraham Lincoln over here.
We got Abraham Lincoln over here. This was painted by a Tennessean whose name escapes me right now, but it's painted by a guy that basically was well-known artist here in Nashville. He was in Bavaria, or Prussia, and over there he went to a party for the birthday of George Washington, and the king found out about it over there and raided the party, and they clapped him in prison along with everybody else at the party. Over there, with monarchies in that day in the 1800s, they didn't like people like George Washington. They were considered revolutionaries, Yeah. And so they threw this artist in jail, and they finally said to him, look, you got two choices. Either you can spend your entire life in prison here in Europe, or we'll send you into exile. He chose exile, and he ended up in Nashville, and he painted this portrait of Abraham Lincoln after Lincoln's death. And this is W.C. Handy from Memphis, the father of the blues. I'm from Memphis, and so we're kind of big on Memphis. This is a reproduction of a much bigger portrait over in the State Museum. In fact, the original is probably 10 feet wide and about 7 or 8 feet tall, and it's a depiction of the mustering in of militia troops at Sycamore Shoals, a historic site in Carter County, Tennessee, and East Tennessee, mustering in to go to the Battle of Kings Mountain. And over here on the wall we have Ida B. Wells. Ida is a anti-lynching suffragist from Memphis in the turn of the century, in the early 1900s and everything. And she later lived in Chicago, Illinois, but she's quite famous for her role in fighting lynching of African Americans in the South in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So,
if you ever want to retire from the Treasury, you can always go become a museum curator.
And up here on the wall, we have a portrait of then Governor Lamar Alexander, now United States Senator Lamar Alexander. We understand this is a rejected portrait that was printed for his, or was painted for his official portrait, but they didn't like it, and so it stayed in the stacks in the basement of the State Museum for a long time until we selected it to be in our office and everything. And over behind you here, we have Howard Baker sitting at his desk as Majority Leader in the United States Senate. This is a copy of his official portrait as Majority Leader. It hangs in the U.S. Capitol in the Hall of Majority Leaders up there. So we're very fortunate, to have that. And over here we have Ben W. Hooper, who was governor of Tennessee in the early 1900s. He was a Republican governor who was elected on the fusionist ticket between some of the Democrats and the Dries in Tennessee, and he was quite an interesting governor. And over here in my office, we have Thomas Lee McClung of Knoxville, very famous family there. The McClung Museum in Knoxville is named for his family and such. And he's the only Tennessean to ever serve as Treasurer of the United States. And he served under President William Howard Taft.
Oh, I'm very impressed with all of this historical knowledge you have.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned you're a Teddy Roosevelt fan. What is your favorite Theodore Roosevelt moment?
Well, there are a lot of moments that Theodore Roosevelt had, ranging from the Spanish-American War and, Cuba and all of that, I guess probably one of the biggest things about him was his love of the outdoors and love of American parks. He's regarded as one of the fathers of the national park system in the United States. and he's preserved an awful lot of sights and scenes and sounds that future generations of Americans will enjoy for a long, long time.
Well, thank you so much for
Good to
doing
see
this.
you.
I know
Okay.
you're a
Thank you
busy
for
man.
everything y'all are doing.
Thank
in
you.
Tissel.
All right.
All
I'm
right.
John Kleiss, and this is Tissel Media.